This is Talking with Burritos, the podcast that's giving you something to talk about when you need consoling after your favorite show has been canceled or goes on hiatus for another year and a half and you're left wondering, why? What can I do now? I am Jerry J.J. Wayne Graham. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the movies The Hitman's Bodyguard, Logan Lucky, and Atomic Blonde. In other news, James Cameron says Wonder Woman is a step back for women. And for the scoop du jour, what to do when your favorite show ends or is canceled. The Hitman's Bodyguard and the Wunza movie. Robert Ebert, to this day, is my favorite movie critic. Ebert and Stephen King when Stephen King reviews movies for Entertainment Weekly. Now, Roger Ebert is my source for trusted movie criticism these days. And there is this pop culture writer I enjoy reading as well. She writes for Wired magazine, and her name is Angela Watercutter. And if there's anyone worth their salt in reading these days, her stuff is worth the pop culture indulgence. Roger Ebert phrased this term, the Wunza movie, which consists of two individuals. One is a blank, and the other is a blank, and together they will do blank. For example, The Nice Guys, the movie starring Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, came out in 2016, May. One is a small-time private dick, and the other, a muscle for hire, who must work together to solve a murder. Example 2, 48 Hours. One is a crook, and the other is a cop working to capture a prison escapee. Example 3 is the movie that we're talking about, Hitman's Bodyguard. One is a bodyguard, and the other is a hitman who is now a key witness in a murder trial. Hitman's Bodyguard was more of a spoof of a 48 Hours and Nice Guys or the Wunza movie. Although Nice Guys and 48 Hours contained many humorous moments worth laughter, it wasn't a comedy. The story maintained rooted in the human element and the evolution of the relationship between the two people forced together in this uncomfortable situation. The human element is where Hitman's Bodyguard misses out on an opportunity to become one of those Wunza movies we take seriously. Samuel L. Jackson and Ryan Reynolds make an awesome duo. However, their roles should have been reversed, in my opinion. Sam should be the bodyguard, an experienced older man of duty, with Reynolds as the young cocky hitman. Jackson's portrayal of a hip and energetic, fast-talking assassin played perfectly in line with his coolness and his overall personality. However, it did not bode well for the fatherly relationship he later established with his young bodyguard. Now consider the relationship between Jack Cates and Reggie Hammond. These two detest one another, as did Bryce and Kincaid, the two characters in Hitman's Bodyguard. But which pair was more believable? Cates and Hammond's relationship developed after a long series of detours, rundowns, and attempts at Hammond's escaping custody. Cates continually taunts Hammond throughout the entire movie, never really showing any remorse or concern for his well-being. 48 Hours ends with Cates punching Hammond in the face. The two were jokey, but not in that slapstick sort of way. Their comedy materializes from the many plot holes they experience in search of Gans, Hammond's former partner in crime. Bryce and Kincaid weren't able to necessarily share in one another's misery enough to develop a true pseudo-relationship. Or maybe it was just all this back and forth with the government and Interpol that disrupted the continuity of the Wunza story. Whatever the case, Kincaid and Bryce were very likable but not well established as two individuals we should care about. They were more comedians than Hitman and Bodyguard. And my thoughts on that was that in movies like in movies like Midnight Run, Slapshot, even Bad Boys, Lethal Weapon, a lot of these characters did not, there wasn't really many scenes with those characters apart from one another. They were always together, whatever they did, and that's who we were following. We were following them, and watching this relationship develop. With this movie, we just had too many cutaways too much emphasis on there was the government, there was interference, and there was this espionage thing going on. There was all these other factors instead of, hey, we're trying to get Kincaid to this courthouse, and that's my only duty. And we didn't really necessarily need all that other stuff, that backstory. I think if it's just straight up and had them going along and just running into these pitfalls and learning about one another and not liking each other, arguing and fighting, which they did in this movie, it just maybe just came off as a little bit too campy and not as serious. Which, it was a good movie though, but however, it was entertaining and it's not to a detriment of the film. But, I just long for more comedies like The Nice Guys. So here's a tidbit though. The best comedic moments of this film came from Salma Hayek and her foul-mouthed tirades. As Sonia Kincaid, Salma Hayek plays the wife to the hitman, Samuel Jackson, who's doing time by association for her husband's misdeed. When they first meet, she lays on this thick Spanish accent with such profanity-laced fluidity to a couple of FBI agents that just warms the vulgarity in all of us. The previous movie I saw her in was How to Be a Latin Lover. And although she's a good speaker, she's even better when they let her Spanish fly. She was actually just very adorable in this movie. She was supposed to play this just hardcore down-ass chick. Down-ass Hispanic woman, down for her man. She loves a man, she hates a man. But she wasn't going to let any of the law tell her how to feel or try to get anything from her. She was just a down-ass girl. Basically, that's what they call them in the hood, I guess, down-ass chick, whatever. But she was awesome. I recommend it for that. But, just like I said, it was a fun movie. It was enjoyable. It made me laugh at sometimes. I could have do more or less with this weird lens flare that they had in it. And I think they were trying to really capture some type of semblance to like 80s comedies, 80s sitcoms with the two Wunzas. I really think they tried to do something with it, but it was a little off-putting at first, to the point where I looked up at the projector and I thought that, hey, is there something wrong with the glass, with the screen? Because it was this bright glare, but it was an aesthetic that they used in the movie, and I'm thinking that it just has something to do with like 80s comedies, 80s Wunza movies, that some of these action movies had that glare, that lens flare, because it made things kind of dramatic. I don't know. So let's go into Lucky Logan. Now, heist movies are dependent on the stakes involved, and for Jimmy Logan, the stakes are rather modest. He just wants to catch a break after injuring his knee in a car accident and ruining any chance of playing ball in college or the NFL. Jimmy and his family, Clyde and his sister Melly, continue to suffer at the hands of fate, and fate is not so sympathetic. However, the Logans just, take it as luck of the draw. The final straw comes when Jimmy draws the short end of the stick and is let go from his construction job due to a pre-existing condition, the knee injury. The same knee that robbed him of a college scholarship, the same knee that sent his brother Clyde to join the military. All Jimmy wants is a break, so he decides to break him off a portion of the millions of dollars brought in by the Motor Raceway Indy 5000. Problem is, the Logans are an unlucky bunch of nobodies, and whosoever colludes with them would either have to be crazy or stupid or both. And that's where the team comes in. What's a heist movie without a bomb man? Here enters Joe Bang, the expert bomb maker who's currently serving time for doing the one thing he enjoys the most, blowing shit up. He and his two brothers, the Bang brothers, are recruited into this scheme, and rightly so. They are none too smart in anything other than bomb making and following Joe Bang's orders. In a clever twist, though, the remainder of the team is completely unaware of their roles in what would become the most exciting thing to ever happen this side of the Mississippi. There's this bank employee, Jimmy's ex-wife's current husband, and a prisoner. They all assist in some way or another without knowledge of ever having participated in the crime the Logans concoct. Now, the plan never goes as well as plotted. There's always some sort of mistake or unforeseen obstacle that derails the objection and puts everyone at risk of being caught. That's why you must always have a plan B. Plan B is usually the sleight of hand that no one sees coming. As we watch everyone perform their assignments on screen, there's an entirely different plan of action happening off screen that will either expose someone as a fraud or make them very rich. Now, Soderbergh is good at keeping us entertained by plan A so that the execution of plan B comes as a complete turnaround, and we the audience don't see coming at all. Logan wasn't a bad guy. He was just doing a bad thing. So in this payout, everyone benefits from his dip in the pool of criminal behavior. Doesn't make it right, but it does validate the stakes just enough to make him, Logan, a redeemable person in the end. Here's a favorable tidbit from this movie. Hilary Swank as Billy Bob Thornton. Now, Billy Bob Thornton, I forgot what movies he was in Soderbergh movies, but he would just show up and just give this kind of deadpan, like person of authority type of performance. And in this movie, they chose Hilary Swank to do that. And she comes in as this swarthy FBI agent, just kind of cocky and just like, she's going to catch these boys. She's going to get them because this crime has been committed. And she's smarter than them. So she's going to expose all of them. But her character is so deadpan, you know. She's like, oh, and what's her name? This another, the woman who plays in Fargo. You know, Soderbergh just has these characters in those movies who play that role as someone who just kind of saunters on screen to solve the crime or to investigate things and try to call people out. And they do it in such a just deadpan, straight-faced sort of way that it just makes it very humorous. And I thought it was actually just good to see her on screen. I haven't seen her in anything in a while, and that is Hilary Swank. But it was fun to actually watch her, you know, saunter on screen and just deliver this Billy Bob-esque performance. I liked it. Now, I didn't really want to get into Atomic Blonde. I just wanted to talk about Atomic Blonde. And if you don't really know about it, well, you know, James Cameron came out and said something about Wonder Woman, which if you go back and read my episode of Talking with Burritos, to episode 68, when I talked about Wonder Woman, and I talked about how it just wasn't a triumph for the cause, for the feminist cause, as many people or some people, even the director, are touting. And in his instance, in his defense, he kind of says the same thing. He says he just doesn't understand it. You know, let's go to the quote. All of the self-congratulatory backpatting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided, he says. That's James Cameron. It's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing. I'm not saying I did not like the movie, but to me, it's a step backwards. And that's basically what he said about, you know, Wonder Woman. And he goes on to mention Sarah Connor was not an iconic beauty. She was strong. She was troubled. She was a terrible mother. And she earned the respect of the audience through pure grit. And to me, he says, James Cameron, the benefit of characters like Sarah is so obvious. I mean, half the audience is female. And I agree with you, James Cameron, because back when I was growing up and searching for a mother figure, I loved Linda Hamilton in that role. Why? Because she did possess strength. She was hardcore. She wasn't laying down for anything. I don't know if it's now my attraction towards like strong women like that. I'm not saying big muscular, but you know, I find them very attractive. Someone who can, you know, really looks the role like is tough. And I think that's why I married my wife, because she was just so assertive, kind of angry, very angry and a little cuckoo. But I really loved Linda Hamilton's role right there. And I fell in love with Linda Hamilton. And I don't know if it was like me falling in love with her beauty, because again, she wasn't an iconic beauty. You know, she was kind of just strong. I just liked her strong personality, you know. her strong presence, and that she was just tough, and this mother bear lioness persona that she had, or character or personality that she had. That's what I really liked about her. And I see what he says about Wonder Woman, because I said the same thing. 70 something, what is it? What's the stat did I bring out? I think it was like 80% of films last year were all produced by men. And you want to say this is a triumph? Sure, it made like $1 trillion, and it's one of the, I think right now, or is it the most successful film of 2017? I'm not sure, but it might be. I know it's up there, and that is a triumph. That is a success. But is it doing anything for the feminist movement? No. Are people rushing out to hire female directors on like pure scale of talent? No. It's still the same old Hollywood, and you're just giving. And is it positive to see someone on screen who is a woman, who is powerful, who is a superhero? Yes. All that is true. But did they tackle any of the real feminist issues that are synonymous with Wonder Woman, with the creation of Wonder Woman, and leading up to even today's society? I don't think so. Very little did they touch on it, because I think if you did that, you would alienate a lot of your crowd, a lot of the people watching the film, a lot of men. So having, like, let's say you did make a pro-feminist film movement, a lot of the critics that maybe praise this movie, they aren't going to come back and say, oh, well, this is the best film ever. No, most likely they wouldn't say that. They would probably say, oh, this is film with so much feminist oversight. I'm like, oh, goodness gracious, why did they throw that in there? Period. The movie did nothing for the feminist movement. If anything, it showed people that, hey, you could watch a movie, and that, hey, this woman can star in a superhero movie, if that's what you think. So actually coming down on James Cameron and saying that he doesn't know what the movie is about, that is crazy. Let me read this. James, let me read this. This is from Patty Jenkins. And I love you, Patty Jenkins. I love it. I love your work. But that's ridiculous. James Cameron's inability to understand what Wonder Woman is or stands for to women all over the world is unsurprising, as though he is a great filmmaker, he is not a woman. I agree with that. And I even said, even my wife was like, oh, it's kind of cool seeing people punch and do everything on screen. So I get the aesthetic of it, and I get the presentation of it. But as far as feminist movement, I don't think that this does anything for it. And you can go back and read articles from a lot of other feminists who have written articles on this. People who specialize in feminism. They just say that this movie did nothing for that. Is it cool? Was it a nice movie? Is it cool to see someone in a starring role? Yes. Was it directed by a woman? Yes. All of that is a plus. But it did nothing for the feminist movement. So to just call him out and say, oh, you're not a woman. That's just, come on, that is lazy. Okay, strong women are great. His praise of my film Monster and our portrayal of a strong yet damaged woman was so appreciated. But if women have to always be hard, tough, and troubled to be strong, we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive and loving. Then we haven't come very far, have we? I believe women can and should be everything, just like male lead characters should be. There is no right and wrong kind of powerful woman, and the massive female audience who made the film a hit can surely choose and judge their own icons of progress. Bullshit. Why do we always have to jump to he's not a woman from the feminist perspective? I just yes, he's not a woman, I'm not a woman. A lot of people who watched the movie aren't women. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. That third act fell apart, but I enjoyed the movie. I just don't like the defense that, oh, he's not a woman, that he can't understand. He understands Hollywood. This man understands Hollywood, and what he's saying that you should not take it lightly. You should not take this and say, take this win and say, oh, Wonder Woman is going to be great. I am great. Everything is great for women now because of this movie. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that understand that it's still a male-driven industry and that they will continue to make money off of you if you just give them what they want. And if you refuse to take chances because over the years, if you read the comic books, Wonder Woman has gravitated from here to there, here and to there. And yes, she is a feminist icon. She was a pretty feminist icon because that's how they drew comic books back in the day. But if you really want to go back to Marston's creation, Wonder Woman was just a woman. She was just a woman. If you look at it, there was nothing really special about Wonder Woman. It wasn't until later on when they start making the costume. Her costume was different. It was eccentric, but later on, as they started drawing comic book characters, feminine heroines in the comic books with busty chest and tight uniforms, more tight uniforms, then yes, they became sexual. And so what you're saying is that she can't be pretty? No one's saying that she can't be pretty because all women are pretty. For me, Robin Wright, she was more beautiful than freaking Gal Gadot, in my opinion. I'm just saying. Because to me, she had she played the role of an Amazonian. She was tough. She was Amazonian, and that's the character that they portrayed to me in the comic books. This woman was always tough. If you watch even one of the recent Wonder Woman cartoons, yes, Wonder Woman was beautiful. Yes, she met Steve. Yes, she was all these things, but she was tough, and she had a mission. So just trying to say and just trying to use this and trying to just basically hush James Cameron and shut him down by saying you're not a man. That's a lazy defense. Don't say things like that because he's trying to look out for the industry. Yes, I'm not saying he's a perfect man because there's some things with him and Linda Hamilton and maybe some affairs and all that. I'm not sure, but I knew something went down that wasn't so PC. So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's a perfect perfect man, but he's been in the industry for a long time, and seeing female characters kind of fall to the wayside if they are presented as being strong rather than holy beauties, and putting up on a pedestal. And yes, this movie made a lot of money. And what I am saying as well, what I said before is, let's not forget that this is Hollywood, and that making money is the number one objective. Art comes second. So pick and choose. So yes, this was a successful movie. And yes, it does tell people that, hey, we can make female superheroes. You will see, Marvel come out with their Captain Marvel, And if you look at Brie Larson, no one's saying Brie Larson is the drop dead Gal Gadot type, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna make a good movie. And to me, I think Brie is more attractive than Gal Gadot because I don't know. There's something about Brie. She's a DJ. That just makes it even better for me because she just seems more down to earth. I don't know Gal Gadot. I don't even know Brie Larson, but I don't know. This woman just seems like she's a little bit more cool to hang around. That's just me. But hey, if you want links to anything I discuss in this segment of this, that, and other news, go ahead to talkingwithburritos.com/ what is this episode? Wunza. Let's go. Wunza, and that's Wunza with WUNZA. Go there, and I'm going to link another article to a feminist writer who actually just took out everything Patty Jenkins said as being shit, because she, again, too, loved the movie, but she didn't think that they were saying anything in that movie that would really help the pro-feminist movement. And also, just think about this. The suffrage movement of the 1950s or 1950s, that right there, that's where Wonder Woman was born. So she was born from this from this movement, from feminism, from women who were out there fighting for women's rights. And this was Marston's rebuttal to that. So take that into consideration. Do a little bit more homework before you start speaking out on how one person might think. Because in my opinion, I don't think he was attacking you. I don't think he was attacking the movie. I think he's attacking the industry and telling you not to get too comfortable with the industry. Because one minute you're there, you have a successful movie, and the next time you're out. Because maybe the next one, the sequel, doesn't do so well. Just saying. So I'm in defense of James Cameron, although he's not perfect. But come on, let's not just use that defense, say, oh, he's not a woman. Yes, we're not. But, we have minds as well. So aren't you kind of like, taking us down a notch or insulting our intelligence of sorts? But she could have looked at it as him being a male of this oligarchy, of this society, of the Hollywood elite looking down upon a woman. Hey, you can present that as well as an argument, and I would love to have someone do it. So, hey, if you really want to, just go to Talking with Ritos contact. I would love to talk about it with you if you are a woman who, or anyone else, man, who just thinks differently than I do. Now, let's go to the last segment. We got the last segment. So I wanted to actually mention, along with this whole Wonder Woman thing, talking about feminism and all that. And I don't know, she might have a little bit of a point, because when I watched, let's say, I wanted to mention Atomic Blonde. And Atomic Blonde was a good movie, wasn't a great movie, but it was all about how Charlize Theron played the part and prepared for the part. She went in, she trained, and when they thought that she couldn't do certain things, like, okay, well, I don't think you're going to be able to do this particular scene, and I'm talking about the stairwell scene, is where it's just this, one camera, all out, just watching her go through these guys who are out to try to kill her. And so she's just battling them, hand-to-hand combat. And also, she's going at them hand-to-hand combat and fighting, hitting back, shooting, killing people. And I don't know if it's that aesthetic that really kind of captures our imagination as men, that we really want to see our women that powerful, that strong, that intimidating. Because if you think about culture and how it is, if a woman is intimidating, we look at her less as an object and more as a threat. I don't know. Something like that. But with her preparation in the scene, and you hear some of the things that she did on set, where she basically, people are like, okay, well, we're going to need a stunt double for this role. And she's like, no, I got this. And then she proves everyone wrong. And does this movie do anything for feminism? Is anyone coming out and say, hey, this is an awesome feminist moment for you? What do you think? There was nothing of that. So just basically because it surrounded this character of Wonder Woman, we get this whole backstory, and we get this new story about feminism and how it is feminism, and why can't we just make a movie and watch it as a movie? Would it have been best as that? Yes, but then they start framing it around this narrative of feminism, and then that's when you have reporters, media people, and news outlets trying to exploit that so that they can get some ratings, and so that they can maybe, and for the studios, because any press is good press. So for the studios in this movie, it only made it that much easier to market. So you have to think about this as a numbers game. It's all about a numbers game unless you make it something other than that. And that is not what Wonder Woman was. It's not a feminist statement. It wasn't out there to make a feminist statement. It was maybe subjectively, a little small, but she's still trying to, she's still chasing after who? A man. And then there's also, she's surrounded by men in every scenario. And I think it would have been nice to, throw some Amazonians from there, someone, because usually when you have an outfit like that, someone removing themselves from their own environment, their own habitat, like the island of Themyscira, you would think that some other, and I think in one iteration, she was joined by other members of the Amazonian race. those who sacrifice their comfort on Themyscira to go out into the real world and protect the princess, right? Because in any of the instances where we have kings, princess, kings, queens, and all these people, they normally don't send their own children out alone. Somebody usually steps up and says, hey, I would like to do this. And in that sense, what about if they did not kill off Robin Wright and send her along? Because Wonder Woman was still training. She was still in training at that age, at that time. She wasn't, perfect. She was still training. So to have Robin Wright, this strong figure, this true Amazonian, this Amazonian who will look at a man and then just look the other way or punch him in the chest. If you had that, then it probably would have framed that movie a little differently, And I also make it a little bit more dramatic. And then there was a stupid love scene that we didn't need. They didn't have it, but it was implied. So, I just think that frustrates me a little bit, that we can't just have a person say this, but have a person express their opinion, especially a man, and then have his statements minimized to the fact that his gender, minimized to the state of his gender, that you can't speak on this because you're a man. It's possible. It's true. We shouldn't be saying anything about anything, but this is not necessarily about that. It's about Hollywood. And that's what he was speaking in terms of. He was speaking in terms of Hollywood, the zeitgeist that is Hollywood. So I think it was just taken out of context, and people really should lay up on him on that, I believe. And also, Linda Hamilton came out and said, leave her alone, stop asking her about James Cameron. So let's leave it at that. Let's go on to the Scoop du Jour segment of this week. And what to do when a show you enjoy ends or is in hiatus, or when it is canceled. This season, let's just talk about this past summer. Every now and then you get shows that actually debut on network television or cable. And, they're sometimes short-lived, but then in other times they get carried on. Sort of like, let's say, what was that show? Like Psyched, if you remember Psyched. When that movie came on, I think when that show debuted, it was in the summertime. And it was like, okay, well, maybe it was good, maybe it isn't. But then, next thing you know, it took off for another, 6 seasons, 5 seasons, whatever. This in particular, what I want to talk about is this show called Downward Dog. If you haven't seen it, it was playing on ABC, and it's based on a Vimeo episodic show, and it just centers around this dog and his master. And this dog has an inner monologue, and only thing he's talking about just the ins and outs, the trials of just being a dog with an owner who's busy, who has a life, who goes out and works, and this dog is basically sitting at home just having this just outwardly thinking monologue process. And so he's just talking to us. And so they were so popular, this show was so popular online, that it actually got picked up by ABC. And I came into it late. I think I learned about it just this year. And then I see that it has a television show. Maybe it's because of that. There was a news headline saying, Vimeo show gets picked up by ABC. Okay, so they debut this thing, and I'm loving it. It wasn't great, but it had potential, and I thought it was hilarious. Especially the dog. The dog is cute and adorable, and the lead actress is great. She was actually wonderful. I think the lead actress really sold it for me, and everything was good about this show. And for me, it was like Pepper the cat. If you guys watch the show, there's this cat that just pesters this dog, and his name is Pepper. And she just, it's just so hilarious how much this dog hates this cat. But I say go ahead and watch that if you want to watch it. But it's a good show. But then, let's say about around the 6th episode, they said, okay, it's not going to be renewed. And I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm like, come on, give it some legs. It was on VMO for so long. You got to get people to know this thing, Have them go over to VMO and start watching the originals, and then maybe they will appreciate this show even better. But, whatever. It's still on Hulu, so you can watch it there. Great show. It ends. I'm sad. And I started just to think about, what other, so what if I really wanted, because they canceled this show. But before that, I learned early on this year, after season 2 of Sense8 debuted, I was watching that show. I love that show. Sense8 on Netflix was a great show. My boss turned me on to this show. And I think it was just a figment of his time, just an outward thinking show by the Warshawskis, Lana and Lena Warshawski, the people who the people who created the Matrix. So it's this show, and it was an outwardly thinking show, but it had action, it had action, sex, everything that you really, and a pretty good story, and everything that you wanted. And so this show gets canceled after this season. They say, okay, well, we're not going to do a season 3. And that's a little bit disappointing because Netflix, all in all, if you watch some of its past shows, they've usually gotten, a season 3. They would announce that, okay, well, this show will not go past season 3. So that gives the creators time to actually invest in writing an ending to the show, instead of abruptly saying, just like after this season, we end on a cliffhanger, and boom, next thing you know, we learn that we won't get any more Sense8. And so that's depressing. So in this sense, I think so it's very so you wish that you could get an ending to a lot of things, and that's sort of the problem with our binge-worthy culture, is that we get so invested in one thing for a short amount of time, but then when it ends, we're kind of left with nothing. We're left with, okay, what next? And it leaves us with this gaping hole. And a huge example is Firefly. Once they ended that show, everyone was like, wait, what? Is not no longer no more shows, no more Firefly, and they protested. They went on the internet. They not protested, but they petitioned, and they begged and begged and begged and begged and begged, so that to the extent that the network, I think it was Fox, decided, okay, well, we'll bring it back and then we'll end the show for you, which that was pretty cool. That was good. And so, as far as Sense8 is concerned, yes, I really do believe that, I think it was worthy of trying to get people's attention, and the problem with Sense8 is that, it was expensive. And so it would take a lot of time to film. It took them almost a year and a half between shows. And when you do that, you don't have that continuity. You don't have that continuity, and you lose, in our culture, and we lose interest of the people who just scroll Netflix and watch shows. So if you don't have something that's coming out like every 6 months or so, if you don't get that contingency, if you don't have that follow-up show or that follow-up season that really keeps it in the minds of people and keeps it in people's mental Rolodex, hey, I want to watch this show, I enjoy this show, then they kind of teeter off and they go into something else because there's always other things debuting on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. So when you do that, and you have such a huge gap of time in between shows, I don't think that helps. I think Kimmy Schmidt, but that's only like a 30-minute show. But even then, the woman went out, I forgot her name, had a baby, and then she came back. But it was longer. There was a longer duration of time in between shows, but it already had its following. Would it be more successful with the following Sense8? I don't know, maybe not, because it really covered a lot of different topics and subject matters that may put some people off. It wasn't really that fun, but yeah, it was a good show. It was action packed, and I think it was well written for the most part. So unfortunately, we just don't have that. We don't have that type of show to really. That show didn't have that following to really propel it to further success. So I get that. And with the ending of that show, and with the ending of one of my daughter's favorite shows, what is it? Two Broke Girls, and some other shows this season, I thought, what could you basically do to maybe to deal with your grief and to deal with your grief of losing a show that you love? And number one, just like that I talked about before, Firefly, you can petition. A lot of this is online petitions. They go online, they sign a petition, and they say, here, look, all these people care about this show. But, names don't necessarily amount to dollars. And that's why the show is ending, because this show, Sense8, was expensive, and you would have to have a lot of interest in this show to keep it on, to keep the show on Netflix, to keep it ongoing. And the amount of people on the petition doesn't necessarily amount to the numbers that they need to, or that they need to validate the expense of this film. However, they just spent like Netflix spent $100 million on that new Netflix Alien movie that comes out, and I think at the beginning of the year. That was like $100 million venture, which certain blockbusters like that, huge investments, they usually go to the big screen. But now we're going to have something that huge on the smaller screen. And it opened up at Cannes or Sundance, one or two. I think Cannes, they were able to show it, and people are actually giving it good reviews. So we'll see what happens there. But you can petition, and just like they did, and a lot of these people did petition, a lot of the fans, the ongoing fans, the current fans, watchers of the show now, they went on, they petitioned, and they had this whole campaign where they would call Netflix like every day and ask about Sense8. Why did you cancel Sense8? Blah, blah, blah. All these different things, wanting answers, and asking them from people who, just customer service reps, people who really just don't know any of the inner workings. They don't make the decisions. They just there to handle your customer service claims, billing and all of that, subscriptions, all of that. So, but then you have the CEO who comes out as, hey, because initially he just had like a little smug look to it. He's just, okay, I don't care. He just really was kind of smug about it. It's like, okay, well, the show ended, wasn't making money. We don't have to give you any reason as to why. We just ended the show. We can't do it. It's just logistically, it doesn't seem like an investment we should make. Granted, but you know what I'm saying? So, but a lot of people, they feel that, even with Firefly, a lot of people just feel that they needed more. Like we deserve more because we invested our time in your show, in the show that you helped produce. You didn't make it. They didn't make it. The CEO of Netflix did not actually film the show. That was Lana Wachowski. She was the showrunner. But yet we like to so we go to the CEO because he canceled it, but he didn't make this show, so therefore he has no ties to it. He probably doesn't even watch it. He probably watched one episode, like, that's cool. He just throws the money. He's the money to back the project. He gives it to him. So if he decides to pull his money, he decides to pull his money, because if you look at that show, it is an expensive show. The show looks expensive. That's the first thing I thought when I watched the first season, or the first few episodes. I thought, whoa, that's a lot of show. That's a lot of money. But so you petition to get people. So one ways to maybe curb your grief in this moment of need after losing a show is to petition. Go out there and just sign up an online petition, submit it to the show studio, like, hey, why don't we please get this? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It worked with Firefly, and it actually kind of worked with Sense8, whereas Tim Kirch or something, he came out, and the CEO of Netflix, and said, okay, well, we're going to do another season. Not really. They're not going to do another season, but they are going to give this show an ending, a 2-hour movie ending. So if you think about that, it's something. It's not enough, I don't think, but it will be enough to suffice the appetites of thirsty fans who just wanted a little bit more than just rerun episodes of going back and revisiting, because it's still a little too soon. The previous show released back in February or whatever, the last season 2, And most likely they went back and watched all of them up till then and then season 2. So, you got to give it some time before you actually go and invest time in that again. Plus, there was Game of Thrones. All these different shows were on. Okay, I get that. But, so, they're going to give Sense8 a 2-hour movie to maybe, give them 2 hours to tie up some loose ends and to give us fans a little something for our troubles. So, sometimes petitioning does work, but in most times it doesn't. Because like I said, names don't amount to dollars most times. But yet they also, Sense8, they could do that. But then also this porn site came out and said that they will fund that show, fund Sense8. The next season of Sense8. So, what do you actually go through and add that? I guess it's in conjunction with Netflix, so you can't necessarily do that. I don't think they go outside for other studios' help. But this is not even a studio. This is a website. So I don't think they would actually do that. And it might seem unredeemable if you did, or somewhat tacky. Not saying, you run a business, whatever. But for this show being on Netflix, I don't think that they will actually put another investor, such as a porn site, in the midst of all this, because they made a decision and this is what it is. And they don't know what creative rights they would give to this site. And for the most part, is most likely just people just saying things like, just coming out and just saying, we'll do it. But then when the money comes around, it's like, well, we don't have that much money, but it sounded interesting at the moment, but it most likely was bullshit. Secondly, I would say just go back and read. You find something else to watch. There's many other things on Netflix that you can find to watch, but you have to find something that will really that you can invest your time in. I was talking to this girl at work, and she said she was sick, and so when she was sick, she told me that when she was sick, what she did was she went back and found like Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is like maybe 9-10 seasons in, and she just invested her time in that. And that's what you do. You find another show, invest your time that you can invest your time in, but make sure this is a long show. That the show has many episodes under its belt before you invest time in it, because you don't want to get into a 2-season show again and then have it end on you and just be disappointed again. You need something that really has some legs. 7-8 seasons, boom. So you go into that and you watch those, and maybe that'll distract you from your grief of losing your number one show, your show that you really like. You could do that. Or thirdly, let's say you just kind of grin and bear it. Okay, so you find a new show. That's second. First, you can petition. Second, you find a new show. Third, you read a book. Think about it. If you open up a book, it takes you longer. It all depends on what kind of reader you are. Open up a book and start reading the book, because you can get invested more so in books, whereas it's just kind of like episodes where you just keep going. Each episode is a chapter, so you go boom, boom, boom. Maybe that's sort of like, taking methadone for like a heroin addiction. Don't quote me on that, but it's sort of like that. Think about this in increments. You have this show, you binged, you shot up this show into your veins, into your mental, into your brain. You shot up this show, you enjoyed it, you indulged in it, you got that weird tingly feeling from it, but then it ends, and so now you're left wanting more. You're left wanting more, something episodic, something that you can really get yourselves into, but you don't want to get into a new show because you don't want to be disappointed again. So what do? I say you get into a book, because they have chapters. That's sort of episodic. So from chapter to chapter to chapter, a chapter could have like 23, 30 chapters. Read Anna Karenina or something like that. That book is long as shit. So you can read that book, and then that will maybe help you distract you from your grief. Or you can just follow the 7 stages of grief. I don't even know what that is. But yeah, I would say read a book, because it's just like chapters. It's just like episodes. Chapters are just like episodes within a series. And then once you do that, you kind of wean yourself off of that show, weaning yourself off until the point that you feel comfortable moving on to maybe the next show. We'll wait for that 2 hour special on Netflix for Sense8. But for everyone else, if you really grieving a show ending, this is the new season, so now it's time for you to get into some new stuff. But if you're grieving a show that's going to end, or that has ended, or is on hiatus like Game of Thrones, now they gave you a pretty solid seventh season. I heard it was great. Haven't gotten there yet, but they said it was great. But now you have to wait like a year and a half to watch the final, the ending, the conclusion, which they are expected to spend like $15 million per episode on that show. How great is that? It's going to look fantastic, I bet you. But I'm not there yet. I'll report back on Game of Thrones. But another question I want to pose to you is to you, the listener, is it better? Is it better to start a show late in the game or start a show right at its conception when it's first released, such as Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones was released, 7-something years ago. And I remember people really loving that show, watching that show, coming to work telling me about that show. Jerry, you should watch this show. Ruby, call out to you. I should have listened to you a long time ago. Ruby do. Watch this show, but yet I was refusing because I didn't want to be part of this whole phenomenon. I really didn't. I was like, you know what? Everybody is into this show. Everyone's talking about it. I don't want to follow the masses, so I just won't watch it. So I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it until starting this season, the 7th season. I did not start watching it. Got the DVDs from a friend, Jessica, and I'm watching the show and I'm loving it. But right now, everyone else has watched, up to episode has watched past season 7, where this season ended on like a huge cliffhanger. Like, oh my goodness, this thing happened. And so now you have to wait a year and a half while I am still young and dumb in the game. And so I'm watching Game of Thrones. I'm watching the Thrones and I'm still enjoying it. So what's better, coming into a show later or having to watch it episodically? I have to watch it every week. And this was a short season. This was like seven episodes or 8 episodes. And the next one is going to be even shorter. So is it even better to do that? So is it better to watch an episode or to watch a show as it's being aired weekly, the shows are debuting, or to jump in later and then be able to binge all of it until you get to the last season or the current season? Well, another friend of mine, another coworker, he just watched it too. He started to watch it. He's Mormon. He didn't want to watch it because of the subject matter. And there's a lot of other things that go on in that show, that language, vulgarity, nudity, sex scenes, all that stuff. But he watched it and he actually binged through all that stuff. He finished it. He surpassed me. I started way before him. And I'm still on season 3. I'm trying to get to Joffrey's death because I hate that kid. That kid is freaking annoying. Oh my goodness, I want him to die so bad. And I know it's a spoiler. I spoiled it for myself. I asked somebody, does he die? When does he die? I want to know because I want to anticipate that episode and watching him just get his due diligence. Just somebody freaking gut his ass. I don't like that kid. He plays a good Dale Godfrey because I just hate him so much. I detest him. But whatever. So I posed that question to you guys. So if you guys want to answer, go to talkingwithburritos.com/contact or just tweet it out. Let me know what you think at #showyourburrito and let's start a conversation on that. How is it better? Is it better to start a show late in the game or as it's being aired? Okay, now let's go on to the final segment of this show. Taylor Swift released a new song, Look What You Made Me Do. Okay, she asked the question, so I want to ask the question back. I want to ask the question with the question. What did we make you do, Taylor Swift? What did we actually make you do? Did we force you to make more money? How about instead of a passive-aggressive diss track, you just write a humble brag? You rich bitch! There are other ways, and I meant that in a nice term. I meant like you really rich, like in a Rick James sort of way. There are other ways to sell an album, and that's by making good music. And isn't that ultimately what any of this should be about? You've already made the money, So why not perfect the craft? Who cares if the media hates you? Make good music and prove every one of your critics wrong. You're teetering on the brink of Bieberdom, making it less about the music and more about you. Many of your fans are young and impressionable, and some of them they use your music to help them cope in their everyday lives. Many of your fans are young and impressionable, and some of them use your music to help them cope in their everyday lives. Just make better music for all of us. There is no reason why Taylor Swift shouldn't be up there as a good, if not great, songwriter. She started strong, but never evolved from that teeny boppy stage. And that's unfortunate. I guess I'll have to wait and listen to the new album, Resurrection Evolved, Revolving Door. What is it called? Reputation. But who cares? If it's anything like this first track, then I'll pass. I wasn't going to buy it anyway, but I do have iTunes, so maybe I'll give it a play for the sake of topical discussion, or just to talk shit. Whatever the instance, I hope Taylor Swift proves me wrong. I really do, because this woman has a lot of talent. She has talent as a songwriter. She really does. I think she just has to dig a little bit deeper and move beyond this, oh, woe is me, no one likes me type thing. You know, because everyone loved you before, but then you came out with that last album and people were a little bit, 1986, they questioned some of the material within that, within that album. And it started out then, and then people started criticizing you, and then this whole Kanye thing came out, and you just kept going back at them, and then it got to the point where they got back at you, and they actually bested you. They came out with audio saying audio to contradict everything that you said about them. So it's kind of like, don't play this game if you don't want to play this game, if you can't play it well, because there are other people who play this game, this whole tick for tack game, very well, and they'll come back at you with tooth and nail to really make you look bad. But you know what you need, Tay-Tay? You need Kendrick Lamar's Damn album. Self-assess yourself and start with the song DNA. Find out what Taylor Swift is all about and then get to writing. The current album is a wrap. I know, Reputation is done. So I'm talking about the next album after you win a lot of undeserved awards based on your popularity rather than the merit of your music. Then after you listen to DNA, skip down to Loyalty and think about who you allow in your inner sanctum of Tay. If you're going to be a pimp, serve it up and get yours. Just don't drag the dude through the mud of a hate track just because things didn't work out. Come on, girl, use a pimp. If you're looking for that special bae, then ensure that person is loyal and not with you for the photo op or cool name combo. Now, this is very important, Tay-Tay. The track Humble. Sometimes you just have to sit your ass down and let things happen. Rejoice in all that you've accomplished and let others work to get theirs. Who cares who says what? Because your bank account says, whoa. In the Fear track, there is this line. At 27, my only fear is being judged. How old are you, Taylor? 27, just like Kendrick. Just saying. In fact, just listen to the whole damn album, pun intended. Pun intended. I know you like rap music and likely use the N-word when no one's around, but that's okay because it's the music talking and the music will set your spirit free. But remember, the music made you do it. It's the music that caused all of this to happen. It's the music that brought your dreams to fruition. It's the music. If you're just making pop jingles that can play on the radio, which they will because you are Taylor Swift, then your music isn't really going anywhere. You're just stagnant. You're gonna stay within this niche of people without ever growing. And so what's going to happen is your fans might just grow past you. And so the thing is, for me, I think she's a great, talented songwriter. I just want her to make better music. And I know it's there, and I know maybe she just hasn't experienced life, as much life as she should. She's been sheltered, and now everyone just gives everything to her. It's possible, and the only thing she has to really talk about would be her relationships, because those are the only things that really have her experience some pain in her life. She's not Adele. She didn't have a drinking problem or an abusive ex. She's not She's not Beyonce. You know, and if you want to talk about Beyonce, and if you're making a concept album of sorts like 21 or like Lemonade, then it better be good. Because you can't just come out with no half-ass shit claiming that, oh, look, this is all about my reputation and I'm just going to snap back at everybody who did me wrong. You can't do that. I think that would be trifling, if anything. You know, shoot your marketing agent. Okay, don't shoot them, but fire them. Because it just won't set a good precedence. Just start making more music. I think she's a great songwriter. I think she should make more music, and I think we'd be better for it if she did, and she was able to grow from that. But right now, if you look at the stance, her marketing team is just awesome. And right now, I think it's more so about marketing than the music, and that's a little depressing when you see that. This woman can play an instrument, plays maybe a couple of instruments. Just all she has to do is strum a beat and just go forward and dig deeper, or just go travel, experience some things, and then come back, write some albums, experience the world, go help people, and then come back, reassess yourself and say, you know, and then listen to Kendrick Lamar and say, you know, what am I all about? What is in my DNA? What am I going to pass on? How else am I going to be humble? Who around me is loyal? Listen to DNA. Really embrace that album. And then do some introspective thinking. Pick up a pen and pad and start writing. But wait, UPS is repping you? Then I can't really hate on that. Make that money, girl. Do your thing. Be a pimp. That's a rap, but not a burrito.